Okay. So, okay, as I've said before, my name is Mbonisi Nyathi. I'm a researcher from the Children's Institute. I've been assisting caregivers of children without birth certificate for over 3 years now. We started this project in 2018. The project is aimed at addressing challenges facing children without birth certificate. So in this presentation, I will share my experiences in assisting caregivers of children without birth certificate, and also give practical examples on how you should go about assisting them. So here's an overview of what I'll be talking about today. What is the problem? The problem is that about 500,000 of children in South Africa do not have birth certificate. Most of them are not able to access social assistance. Is there a solution to this problem? Yes, there is a solution. A little well-known regulation to the Social Assistance Act, known as Regulation 11, which allows applicants to apply for a social grant, even if they don't have the required documents like your identity or your birth certificate. How is this meant to work? So the requirements are clearly outlined in the regulations and in the SASSA internal documents. So we have two documents that are used by SASSA, which is the 2009 SASSA strategy document and the practice note that was issued in October 2019 that is meant to supplement the strategy document. How can we assist? It can be difficult for families to go through this process alone. So they need help to navigate this process with officials. So as CI, we've been providing legal services, and we want to share lessons that we have learned while we've been doing this. This is a case scenario that I've been assisting the family with. So imagine you are assisting Miss M. Miss M is 55 years old, lives in a rural Eastern Cape, and is unemployed. Miss M has 6 adult children. Of those 6, 2 are daughters without birth certificate. When Miss gave birth to all of the children, she did not have an ID document. Her ID was only issued in 2004. One of her daughters, who's 40 years old, also without an ID, has 5 children of her own. All of them without birth certificate. And Miss M is responsible for 3 of these grandchildren. So from this case, what issues can you identify from this scenario? How will you go about assisting this family? So as I'm presenting what I'm presenting to you today, I want you to have at the back of your mind, identify the issues that you can identify from this case, and also link to what I'm saying to how you should go about assisting this family. So what I will talk to you, I will talk to you practical solutions on how you should go about assisting such a family. So, but before that, let me talk numbers first. So before COVID-19, the number of children without birth certificate in South Africa, our estimate was about 500,000, 500,000. So who are these children? 80% of them, they are South African citizens. They are from poor households. And most of them are likely to be excluded from school. They are also likely to be excluded from social assistance. I'll come to this later and show you why I'm saying they are likely to be excluded from social assistance. So in 2021, how many are they? So for now, we don't know the number now because you'll recall that during lockdown, level 4, level 5, level 3, Home Affairs have been issuing limited services. Some services like late birth registration have not been offered during level 4, level 5, level 3. And even at level 2, they were issuing the late birth registration. It was done per appointment only. So you can see that there is a backlog that is growing. The number might be growing, it might be huge than what we anticipate now. So the categories of these children is that we often see orphaned or abandoned children in the care of relatives. We also see children in the care of unmarried fathers, where the mother is either deceased or is missing. They don't know the whereabouts of the mother. We also see children whose mothers do not have IDs or their own birth certificate, or when they gave birth, they had a birth certificate but did not have an ID. So even if you have a birth certificate, you still need to have an ID for you to be able to apply for a birth certificate for your child. So this, it becomes an intergenerational exclusion. Like we have seen from the case that I've mentioned above, the mother, when she gave birth, she did not have an ID. So it meant her children were not registered at birth. So it's now, it continues. We also have children whose mothers live in another province. So we have migrant workers. So mostly people from Eastern Cape, they usually go to other provinces like Western Cape, Gauteng, Northwest, and for work opportunities in those provinces. So these children, they are left with their grandmothers there in the rural areas, and they are not able to assist them to apply for their documents in time. So as Children Institute, we've been assisting over 120 children and their caregivers from 4 provinces, which is Gauteng, Eastern Cape, Western Cape, and KwaZulu-Natal. So what we do is we assist these caregivers to obtain documents from Home Affairs and record the process and identify the barriers that they are experiencing as they try to apply for this document. So because most of them, they are late birth registration, late birth registration is a complicated process. It takes long and it is very costly. During lockdown, like I've said before, Home Affairs have been offering limited service. So this means that there's an increase in waiting time and also a growing backlog. Whilst we assist them to get the documents, in the meantime, we also assist them simultaneously, assist caregivers to apply for social assistance using the provision to Regulation 11 of this of the Social Assistance Act. So this exception, it allows caregivers without IDs or birth certificate to submit alternative documents when applying for social assistance. So, but the challenge is that many professionals and officials are not aware that the law allows people without birth certificate or without IDs to apply for social assistance. So we're here to present today because we want to raise awareness of this Regulation 11 and the process that people must follow in assisting people who are without documents. So as I've said before, that there are about 500 children without a birth certificate. But in terms of the numbers that are from SASSA, there are about 31 children, 31,000 children without that are getting CSG without birth certificate. So you can see that a lot of children without birth certificate are already excluded. So why are so few accessing CSG? So there are many factors that contribute to this. The first one is that caregivers do not know that they can apply for social assistance without ID or without a birth certificate. So even those who we meet and we tell them that there is this option, when they go to apply or they go to the relevant departments where they should be assisted, the professionals that are assisting them, like your social workers, your nurses, they don't know about this option, and they don't even recommend it to these caregivers. So many SASSA officials or security guard or managers, even managers, they don't know that caregivers can access social assistance without IDs or without documents. So we have even in some offices where caregivers, when they go to SASSA offices to apply for this grant, they will be let in by the security personnel because they have to positively identify themselves. So if they cannot positively identify themselves using their IDs, they cannot enter these buildings. In cases where officials are aware of it, they often are reluctant to process it. And in some cases, they impose extra requirements that are not required by SASSA's internal documents. So this is the challenge that is there. But another challenge that was there before June 2020 is that these grants were getting cancelled after 3 months if the caregiver did not return with the missing documents like your ID or your document. That or proof that they've applied for the documents from Home Affairs. So what has happened is that in June 2020, SASSA agreed that they were going to suspend this operation of 3 months cancellation, and while the state of disaster was in effect. So it was recognizing that during this period, Home Affairs was offering limited services, and date birth registration were not available to these applicants. So what is this Regulation 11? So the Social Assistance Act and its regulation, it has eligibility criteria and procedures for people who want to access social assistance. So the Regulation 11 requires that an applicant submits an ID document for themselves or a birth certificate for the children. But the good news is that the Regulation 11 also has an exception to the requirement that you have to provide an ID or a birth certificate. It allows SASSA to accept the applications without identity documents or without birth certificate. So this is the wording of Regulation 11. So it says, where when applying for a grant, an applicant must provide for their ID and must provide for the birth certificate for their children. The exception to the rule is provided in the yellow highlighted text. It means that if the caregiver cannot get these the documents from Home Affairs, then there is a SASSA affidavit that can be accepted. So there is a prescribed affidavit that they must complete that can be accepted at the space of an ID document or a birth certificate. So what are these alternative documents that are allowed? So in addition to the prescribed affidavit, you can submit one of the following documents. It can be a baptismal certificate. It can be a road to health clinic card. It can be a letter from a reputable person that knows the applicant and the child. So this can be a letter from the school principal, a traditional leader, a counselor, a social worker, or a religious minister. So this is a pastor. So they can also submit their latest school term report, or even proof of application from Home Affairs. So these documents, they are not required by law, but are listed in the 2009 SASSA strategy document. And we advise that if you have them, you submit them so that your application can be successful. So on how you should go about applying for this grant, firstly, you have to gather the documents. So I advise that clients, they gather all the documents that are required for a normal application for a child support grant. So what are those documents? Those documents are a marriage certificate if the applicant is married. If not, and then other documents that are required are a bank statement or a payslip if they're employed. If they are not employed, they can provide an affidavit stating that they are unemployed. So other alternative documents that they can use to prove their identity. Another document that I've not mentioned here that is also important from the document that they should gather is a proof of address. So this is normally required in app and SASSA offices. So they usually require these documents, proof of address. So other documents that, alternative documents that the clients can submit in addition to these documents, if there's no birth certificate, is an affidavit from the police. So this affidavit must give reason why the primary caregiver has no ID or why the child does not have a birth certificate. If the child has the road to health clinic card, you provide a copy for it. If the child has no road to health clinic card, you get a school letter or a traditional letter. So this letter, it should state when the child was born and who's the mother or who's the primary caregiver, and it should have the date of birth of the child. If the client has a proof of application from Home Affairs, then it is great. Then provide a copy for it. But it is not a requirement that you have this proof of application from Home Affairs at the application stage. I will come back to this later and give more clarity on this. So then your client will have to approach SASSA. So the first hurdle that they have to deal with is security, getting inside, because in cases where the primary caregiver herself does not have an ID document, it means that they cannot positively identify themselves to get inside. So the first hurdle will be to get inside. How do they get inside? Explaining why they are there. So if they get there inside, the second hurdle is to explain to the front desk officials at SASSA, explain that they are there to apply for CSG using alternative documents in terms of Regulation 11, and also to get an extra affidavit from SASSA that they have to get signed either at police station, or in some cases, some offices at SASSA, they do this affidavit internally. So there's no need for clients to go to police station to get this affidavit commissioned at the police station if they can do it internally. So in most cases is that from our experience is that officials often require that clients provide proof of application from DHA. So this could be a receipt from DHA that they're applying for the document, they've applied for the documents, or another document that is requested is proof of school attendance form, which is called Annexure E. But in terms of the strategy document and the practice note, these documents are not required at the application stage. So for example, for the proof of application from Home Affairs, if they have it, it's great because it means that the SASSA official has to tick on the suspense system and tick that the client have provided a proof. This means that the grant has to be kept in payment until such time Home Affairs issues the document. Even the proof of school attendance is not a requirement during the application stage, but it has to be provided within a month. If it is not provided within a month, what is supposed to happen in practice is that SASSA must contact DSD and liaise with their social worker for the social worker to assist the family to enroll the child in school if the child is not attending school. So this is what is supposed to happen in practice. So I'll give you sort of an example on how you should go about doing this in practice. So you start at home, like you make copies of your documents, like your proof of address, your ID document, if you have it. If the child has a road to clinic card, you make copies of that. You make copies of your bank statement. If you are unemployed, an affidavit that you are unemployed. So in cases where the child does not have a road to clinic card, so there are such cases where the child was born home and the family never went to clinic facility after that to get the clinic card, or the clinic card was issued but it's lost. What do you do in such instances? You can get a letter from the school or from the chief or from the counselor or from the priest. And as I've said before, that letter, it has to have the name of the child, the date of birth, where they live, and who's the primary caregiver, and if they are known to that person. So it has to state that. And then the next step that they have to do is to go to the police station to deposit an affidavit. So they have to deposit an affidavit stating that the child, the reason why the child does not have a birth certificate. If it is the caregiver who does not have a birth certificate, they must also state the reason why they don't have a birth certificate, an ID or a birth certificate for themselves. After that, I think they will have all the documents that I've listed before. They'll be ready to go to SASSA to lodge an application. They can then go to SASSA to lodge an application. And from there, what's supposed to happen is that if they have a proof of application from Home Affairs, then SASSA will have to issue a referral letter to this client, referring them to Home Affairs. So they will have to go to Home Affairs now, where that letter, if they've applied before for that document, it tells Home Affairs to fast track the application if there is application that is already in process. If there's no application, then they have to start the application. And within 3 months, they have to bring proof from Home Affairs that they're attending to the application. So this can be a letter, an acknowledgement of receipt from Home Affairs. It can be a letter from social workers saying they are assisting the family to attend to the birth certificate, or even in some cases, it can be a letter to from legal aid, stating that they are assisting the family if the family has been referred to legal aid for either for a guardianship application or for whatever reason why they are decided to be referred to legal aid. So but in practice, what usually happens is that the client will have all these documents and they'll go to SASSA. And when they go to SASSA, SASSA will refer them first before entertaining them. They will tell them to go to Home Affairs. Or if sometimes they have even a letter from the school, they will give them an extra E and tell them to go back to school to get this. Or so it tends to be a back and forth from the clients going from this office to this office because they are not being assisted at SASSA. And this tends to be also costly for clients because it means they have to use the little money that they have in trying to get the right documents for them to be able to apply. So that's why I advise clients that first, before even going to SASSA, gather your documents first so that you save cost in terms of from up and down trips that they usually take to and incur additional costs which are necessary. So you prepare your documents first, all the documents that are required to make sure that they are ready before you approach SASSA. And so this is the ideal way in which we can do about this, or in which we can advise your clients to go about it. So then what do you do when you are facing challenges at SASSA? The first thing that you should do, if you have a copy of the 2009 statute document, you can, or the practice note, you can give your clients a copy so that when they get to SASSA, they show them this document that they are here to apply their social assistance grant in terms of this document. In cases where they are being turned away, it's advisable that they take the name of the officials that turns them away, or that request additional documents that are not required by the law or by the SASSA's own internal rules. So there is a hierarchy that they have to follow. If they are not assisted from the front desk officials, the first thing is to speak to their supervisors or the team leaders or the office manager. You raise this first with the office manager. If it doesn't help, this fails, you go to the district manager. If it fails, you escalate this to the regional manager. And if it fails, then your last resort will be to go to the national office and report this to the national office. So in most office, the contact details or the contact details of the office manager, you can get them at the local SASSA offices. And even for the district managers, you can get there who is the district manager for that particular office. But in the meantime, I'll share with you the contact details for the regional managers. But this should be they should only be contacted when you have failed to resolve this issue, either with the office manager or the district manager. We hope that this presentation will share with you at some later date, and you will get all this information. And we'll also share the 2009 SASSA strategy document and the practice note, and so that you have copies. But in cases where you are struggling, you need help, you can contact me. Here is my email address where you can contact me for technical support and legal help. In cases where the children, where the children are foreign nationals, or where at least one parent is a South African citizen, or it's a refugee or a permanent resident, you can contact LHR, which is Lawyers for Human Rights, or Legal Resource Center for legal advice. For now, I'm hoping that we can have questions and engage further on this, and yeah, we take it from there.
Nyathi, for that well descriptive and fruitful presentation. There are two questions that people have actually posted here on the question, or on the questions tab. And the one is, how do we help a child who's an orphan and the parents' documents to prove is not available?
Can you repeat the question again?
Okay, the question here is, how do we help a child who's an orphan and the parents' documents to prove this is not available?
Okay, so there are cases where, like I said, in some cases, it's a generation thing, so where the parents were not documented. And when they die, their parents, when they die, it means because they never had an ID, or yeah, they don't have a what, a death certificate. Ideally, they should be able to get, regardless whether they had an ID document or not, they should be able to get a death certificate without an ID number. So that death certificate should be able to assist to prove that this child is an orphan. But in such cases, this is the case where social workers are meant to help these children. So this is where you go to your social worker, and they should be able to assist in terms of one, assisting that child to get the relevant documentation and getting the birth certificate for that particular child.
I hope that answers the question. Perhaps to other participants that are in the session, if you feel that the Q&A tab is a bit difficult for you to put in your question, please feel free to actually put it on the chat where we can see it, and perhaps that might be a little easier. So I'll wait for you going once.
Okay.
Going
We don't
twice.
have other questions from...
No, that was the only question that was put on the tab. So I'm just inviting everyone to also put it on the chat should it be difficult for them to actually insert it there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe in the meantime, I can just add other information that people might want to know in terms of how this grant is processed at SASSA.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. So in terms of SASSA's strategy document, the 2009 strategy document, so how this is meant to work is that, so if the client present themselves there at Home Affairs, at SASSA, I mean, they will have to be screened and advised on all the standard documents that they are required for a CSG application. So this is your marriage certificate if they are married, a bank statement or a payslip if they are working. If they are not working, this should be an affidavit that stating that they are unemployed. Proof of address. This is often requested from urban SASSA offices. And if the child that is in their care is not their biological child, they must state that, an affidavit stating that they are the primary caregiver if they are not the biological parent. So yeah, like I said, in cases where there's no ID number, because there's no ID document or a birth certificate that is available, attached to the strategy document is an Annex I affidavit that they normally get from SASSA. So this Annex I affidavit, that's the prescribed affidavit that must be used in place of an ID or a birth certificate. And it must be accompanied by either your baptismal certificate or your road to health clinic card or a report or a letter from the chief. So this affidavit, it must be, in terms of what the structured document says, it says it must be commissioned externally. So it means they have to go to a commissioner of oath, or they have to go to a police station to get it commissioned. But in most instances, and from my experience, is that SASSA offices, they do this internally. And in addition to that, they require an additional affidavit from the police. So that affidavit from the police, it has to state the reasons why the caregiver or the child doesn't have a birth certificate.
Okay. There are 4 more other questions that have been put onto the chat. Perhaps you would want me to go through them one by one, perhaps. Okay. The second one is that the law provides that social workers are supposed to register orphans. They are the ones that must apply, but in our experience, they do not do this. What should we do if a social worker is not assisting the orphan?
Okay. This is one of the problems that I've also experienced, that social workers are not doing, they're not applying for birth certificate for orphan children as they're supposed to do in terms of the law. So, so normally, if there is a court, or if there is a court order, there should be a court order ordering that social worker to apply for a birth certificate. So the best way to handle such a case is that if it is issued at the children's court, if we have a copy of that order, you should be able to take that order and go back to the magistrate that has issued that court order and say, this social worker is in contempt of executing the court order, because they must go to Home Affairs and apply there and use their details to help this orphan child to get a birth certificate. So my advice would be there for them to go back to the children's court and explain why, what has happened, and why, so that the judge or the magistrate should call this social worker for them to explain why they failed to to execute the order in terms of and neglected their duty to apply for this birth certificate. So this will be But if there are cases, such cases where there are people in this platform that are struggling with this, if they need help, they can certainly contact me on my email address that I've provided, that will be provided on the slide, and we'll be able to guide them on how they should go about assisting these orphaned children.
And then there's a second one, another question that reads, what do we do if they have no tags? How do we see the official that we are talking to? I'm assuming this is at the Department of Home Affairs.
Yeah. I think every public officials working at public offices at SASSA and Home Affairs or SASSA, they should have their tags on. If they do not have their tags, it is upon the applicant or the person who's engaging them to ask their name. Ask what is your name, like, so that it's also easier, for example, if you've been assisted by this official and you've been turned away, or they've told you to go and get certain documents. If you go back, you cannot go back and start afresh and be assisted by a different official. So you have to know who's assisting you, so that you make it easier when you go back, so that you know who's assisting you. So if in cases where they don't have their tags on, you request their name. It is their duty to have those tags and to tell their name who they are.
And then another question is, can caregivers who are refugees apply for CSG for their child or children?
Yes, my understanding is that the refugees can apply for social assistance if they have their permits. I think it's something that that they can do. They can approach SASSA and apply. There is a provision, I think, that allows them to apply for a child support grant.
And then we have, there's a comment that says we have a challenge with security from the Department of Home Affairs, who turn us away when we are going to get assistance for children who are not having SA birth documents. And what do we do with this issue?
So in such cases, it is very difficult to get inside Home Affairs or even at SASSA offices. So the best way, because these security personnel, in most instances, they act as gatekeepers in most instances. And it is important that people who want to assistance, they request to speak to the managers of those offices, so that they complain about the services or the experiences that they get from this security personnel. Because it can't be that people cannot get documents because the security guards decides who gets in or who gets into these SASSA buildings, or who gets into Home Affairs building. So if they cannot get inside, it is important that they ask to speak to the managers of these offices.
And the second to last question we have here, but why are there so few children without birth certificates not getting CSG?
So, so the problem that is there is that a lot of people do not know about that there is an exception to the rules. This regulation 11, that are the exception to regulation 11.1. So they do not know about this this provision. In cases where they know about it, if they go to SASSA offices, from our experiences, from what we have seen so far, is that the officials are reluctant to process these applications because in some cases it creates additional burden for them in terms of the documentation, because some of the cases they have to be manually managed. So it creates additional burden for them. So they will do their best to avoid having these cases. There are cases where even office managers at SASSA offices, they are not aware of this regulation 11 that it exists. So you can imagine if some SASSA officials are not aware of it, how it is difficult for clients on the ground to go to SASSA offices and ask that they want to apply for this grant. So the reason why the numbers are so low is because there is no awareness of this. In cases where there is awareness, there is reluctance to implement it. So these are the reasons that, yeah, I can say they are the reason for the low intake when it comes to for children without birth certificate.
Okay, thank you for that. And the last question that I see here, but the social workers won't start the process with the children's courts. With the children's courts, what do we do then? There is no court order. It says, but let me read that again. It says, but the social workers won't even start the process with the children's courts. What do we do then? There is no court order.
So I assume this will be cases where they've gone to the social workers and the social workers have not opened a file and they've not even started the process to help these families. I think because it is all, in most cases from my experiences that I've seen families who have been going to social workers for more than a year, where the social workers say to them they'll come for a visit and they've never done that visit, or before they can even start open a file. So in such cases, I think the best way is to seek legal help in terms of getting someone who can go through that process with you. If you have such a case where you have struggled to open a file with the social workers, I will suggest that you drop me an email and we take it from there. I'll be able to assist you and go with you through that journey to get the attention of social workers or even their superiors.
Okay, I think we have come to the end of the question sessions. And
okay.
Again, we would like to thank you, Mr. Nyathi, and your colleagues for the presentation, the fruitful presentation. And I believe should any other questions arises, you have provided us with steps in how to communicate with you in terms of actually assisting us.
Yes.
So thank you, everyone, and thank you to the participants that actually have come to the session, and thank you to the presenters as well.